Blog Talk Radio.
We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume.
All right, folks, thanks for tuning in to Outer Limits Radio. This is your host, Steve Long. For those of you who have listened in before, thanks for tuning back in again. And for any new listeners, I'm glad you decided to tune in tonight. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. Later on, we're going to have a musical guest. I don't think they're going to be playing any music. It's Oklahoma City's blues rock band, Them Hounds. And then later on, our special guest will be governor candidate, R.J. Harris. So stay tuned for that later on. We're going to jump right into things and start off with our first segment, which I know you all know and love.
Once upon a time in America.
That's right. It's time for Once Upon a Time in America, where I will be going over some things that happened this week in American history in the past, which is why it's called history. On August 18th in 1920, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified. That was the amendment that gave women the right to vote. So that was good. August 19th in 1692, 5 people are executed after being convicted of witchcraft in the popular Salem witch trials. In 1782, the Battle of Blue Licks is fought. This is actually the last major engagement of the American War of Independence. In 1909, on August 19th, the first car race occurs at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. On August 20th, in 1866, the U.S. Civil War is formally declared an end by President Andrew Johnson. In 1897, on August 21st, the automobile company Oldsmobile is founded in Michigan by Ransom Olds. In 1959, President Eisenhower signs an executive order to proclaim Hawaii as the 50th state. In 1992, on August 21st, the Ruby Ridge standoff occurs in northern Idaho between Randy Weaver and his family and the FBI. On August 22nd, 1848, New Mexico is annexed by the United States. 1902, another event in car history, the automobile company Cadillac is founded by Henry Ford and Henry Leland in Michigan. 1989, sports news. Nolan Ryan becomes the first Major League pitcher to record 5,000 strikeouts when he strikes out Rickey Henderson. 2007, on August 22nd, the Texas Rangers score the most runs ever by a team in Major League history when they defeat the Baltimore Orioles 30-3. On August 24th, in 1892, Thomas Edison patents the first motion picture camera. In 1932, Amelia Earhart becomes the first woman to fly nonstop across the United States. In 1954, President Eisenhower signs the Communist Control Act outlawing the American Communist Party and criminalizing membership in communist organizations. This bill, by the way, has never been repealed or declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of the United States, although it is no longer enforced. And in 1989, on August 24th, Pete Rose is banned from baseball for life due to his gambling activities. That's it for Once Upon a Time in America, folks. Tune in again next week, and we will go over some more historically significant events. And for now, we will be going over some news items. Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt won a minor battle against Obamacare last week. Currently, the state of Oklahoma is involved in a lawsuit to make it illegal for the IRS to enforce the employer mandate in the state of Oklahoma. The administration claimed that Oklahoma did not have any standing to challenge the law, and federal court said otherwise, which is going to allow this lawsuit to continue. And just in case you're not up on your Obamacare knowledge, the employer mandate in the Obamacare law states that any employer with more than 50 full-time employees must offer health insurance or face fines. And Attorney General Scott Pruitt, as well as many other states' attorney generals, have taken the administration to court over it. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, in the news again, vetoed a bill that would make it easier for parents to treat sick children with medical marijuana. This bill was passed by the New Jersey State Legislature last summer. This bill would have made it easier for parents to be able to have their children treated for terminal illness without the consent of a physician. The law currently requires the approval of 3 doctors to be treated with medical marijuana. Recently, Governor Christie told the father of a sick child that the legalization of medical marijuana is more complex than just letting his daughter live. Way to go, Governor Christie. That's some compassion for you. U.S. Senator Rand Paul this weekend urged the Supreme Court of the United States to review the data collection efforts or methods made by the NSA. Senator Paul claimed that the president does not understand what his constitutional powers are or the systems of checks and balances that were put in place by the founders. He also claims that practices such as those conducted by the NSA are frequent in the Obama administration. Yeah. The idea that the president doesn't understand where his power begins and where it ends, no big surprise there. I'm sure you have probably heard that the CIA has admitted to the existence of Area 51. Now, although they did not confirm the existence of aliens, they did confirm that the top secret installation did exist, claiming that it was used for research and to launch spy planes such as the U-2. In local news, Congressman James Lankford got an earful at a recent town hall event regarding the NSA. The constituent of his, Dax Eubank, a local liberty activist, claimed that Congressman Lankford lied to him in a recent letter that he received. Here is some audio from that meeting.
NSA, I got a letter from you regarding the NSA program, and you claim that they weren't collecting anything that you couldn't find in a phone book. Basically, that's what I've been told.
I didn't put that in my letter. Michelle Hoffman has that out personally, but I did not put that in my letter.
And initial reports led Americans to believe that the NSA keeps the contents of each call as well, but that information has proven to be completely false.
That is my letter.
Okay. It's not completely false. The DEA and the IRS have just been found that they are getting information from the NSA as to tips to bust domestic criminals, and then they are taught to do what's called a parallel investigation where they cover up how they got the information. So the DEA and the IRS are getting information from the NSA and using it to frame American citizens and then lying about where they got the information.
Absolutely.
Congressman. This is what is happening. Now, what happens if the government becomes politically against my belief system or my lifestyle?
Right.
Yeah. What happens? Now the NSA gives a tip to some jackbooted thug who doesn't care about me or my family and will kick my door down for the fun of it.
They've done it.
And they've done it. They've done it.
They've done it.
And I want it to stop. That's why I'm so angry. That's why I don't accept this idea. I do not accept this idea that we need to wait for 2 years while you guys figure out what to do. It needs to end now. And then you figure out what to do.
Spent 235 years to make this right, and we haven't made it right yet.
The DEA and the IRS address that particular issue.
Here's what I'd like to do. I saw some internet reports on that as well.
Don't tell me it's not true. I mean, everything that I bring up, you say, well, it's just not true. Everything that anybody brings up, you say it's just not true. And then you say it's classified.
I'm not going to say it's classified. I'm going to tell you I've sat in multiple classified briefings. We've gone through with multiple folks with the NSA to find out what they have, what they don't have, what they do, what they don't do. That's not it. Now,
Clapper lied before Congress.
True.
That's what I was going to say. There's no way that I was convinced very upset about this. And if that was happening, I could just kick off.
But you can do it. You are in charge of the purse strings. Congress is in charge, and we were 16 votes away from taking away their funding.
12, I thought. 12.
That's assuming Harry Reid's going to pick that up and going to run that. You think Harry Reid was going to run with that?
Well, then shut the government down because you guys don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Woo!
Very good. Very good.
So, as you can see, Congressman Langford didn't have such a fun time answering the constituents' questions, and as you can tell, kind of just flat out lied to him. You'll be hearing more about this this later. There's a lot of there's a lot of lying going on about this NSA thing, and I don't think that was its tune. Later on, we're going to open up the old phone line, so if you want to write that number down for later, the number is 646-378-1886. And here in just a few moments, we're going to have some local musicians on the line. It is a blues rock band called Them Hounds, and they're probably just a little bit behind. Not a big deal. Got a few minutes to wait for them. In any case, we are going to have a gubernatorial candidate for Oklahoma on later in the show. It's going to be R.J. Harris. We're really looking forward to having him on the show tonight, and I'm sure others are. So anyway, we've got a caller coming in. I believe that is probably them. You are on the Otter Limits. Is this Erin?
Yes, it is. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for coming on with us tonight.
Absolutely.
All right. You got anybody else there with you?
Actually, it's just me tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your band and how you guys got together.
Okay. It started about August of 2011. We've had a few member changes since then, but we play around Oklahoma City all the time. We just got back from a Texas tour, just did a music video, and we've got a couple shows coming up in Tulsa and Dallas in September. So been around for a couple years. We play a lot of bluesy stuff, blues, rock and roll. Some of it's heavy, some of it's kind of jazzy. There's a good mix in there for sure.
All right. You just mentioned that you have a new video out. Is there a place online where folks can go out there and listen to it?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. And if you go to FTV OKC, it's up on their homepage. Those are the people who produced the video, and then Elephant Treehouse. Attila Balaj is the one who directed it. And if you go to his YouTube page as well, if you just search Them Hounds, The Fix, should pop right up.
Okay.
So.
Do you guys have a website of your own?
We don't have our own domain. We have like a Bandcamp and a Facebook and all that good stuff. But if you go to our Facebook page, which is just facebook.com/themhounds, you can actually link through our Bandcamp, and you can purchase songs individually. You can purchase a CD or a digital download. And then we also have like shirts and posters and stickers on there and stuff like that.
Good deal. So you got together in 2011. Who are all the other members of the band right now?
Right now, it's me. Our guitar player is Michael Franklin. Our drummer is Brian McKinney, and our bass player is John Bolin. And John and I are two of the original members. And guitar and drums have changed, so we're still going strong, though.
So who would you say are some of your influences? Like what bands or artists first got you into wanting to play music?
Oh, I grew up listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin. That was, like, ingrained into my head from listening to my dad's music. Janis Joplin, The Who. And I know everybody else pretty much has the same musical interests as far as classic rock goes, but we all have tons of different influences. I mean, like I said, a lot of it's really bluesy, but there's some stuff that's really jazzy and it's sleepier and even a little bit country at times. There's a lot of diversity in our songs, I think, that stems from a lot of different places for sure. But definitely some of the blues classics like Muddy Waters, and people like Etta James and Billie Holiday for me too, definitely. A lot of different artists for sure.
So your band is are you all originals or do you mix it up with some covers or?
We're all originals. We've played a few covers in the past. We've done some Zeppelin covers. We've done some Muddy Waters stuff as well, but we just generally focus on playing all original stuff.
Good deal. So tell me about your songwriting process. Is it music gets written first and then lyrics, or vice versa?
It kind of depends. Some of the stuff that we write is based off of like a simple riff, and then I have all of these themes kind of floating around in my head that I like to hear what the music's doing and then see how I feel, what I feel, the emotion is coming from the music, and that tends to help me in my lyrics. And I do a lot better with melodies first, of course, and then the lyrics kind of come in after that. But it's all an equal process. We all put in our equal parts. Everybody does their own specific thing. So it's not like I'm writing guitar parts or anything like that. It's everybody does their respective instrument really well. So we have a good process going as far as songwriting.
Sounds good. What are some of your favorite venues to play?
Favorite venues? Definitely like VZDs. We play there quite a bit. We had our release show there, our album release party. Blue Note down on Robinson and 23rd. We played our first show ever as a band there, and we've probably played there over 100 times. Belle Isle Brewery is really great. We've played in the Deli down in Norman. But Blue Note and VZDs are probably like our favorites for sure, because there's a lot of local musicians who like to go there as well. So I think there's a good sense of community with those two venues as far as local music.
Okay. Who are some of your favorite bands to kind of play shows with or tour with, if you do anything like that?
Well, when we went on tour, we played with the Kamals in Dallas. They're based out of Oklahoma City. we play with them quite a bit. They're a real jammy, bluesy, kind of cream sounding band. They're really good, and we play with them a lot. There's a band from Dallas called Chase Ryan and the Grave that we toured with for about 3 stops. And our kind of music does really well in Texas, I've noticed, because we've been down there quite a bit. But there's also another band called the Younglings. Baylor Judd, he's the lead guy in that group. They're really good too. But yeah, I mean, we play with all kinds of people, blues or not blues. We played with Jacob Abello. He's more of like a pop kind of 80s thing going on. But, I mean, we play with all kinds of people all the time.
Great.
Yeah.
So I got a question about Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City area specifically. What are your thoughts on the Oklahoma City music scene in general?
My thoughts? I think there's always room for improvement as far as support goes. As a local musician, you want people to come to your shows, but, a lot of the time you look out and you don't see a lot of other local musicians there, so I think there's definitely room for improvement as far as that goes. But I think overall, I mean, we have it pretty good. Of course, with like ACM at UCO and everything that the Lips do, I think that it's alive and well for sure. But room to grow, absolutely.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. So, do you have any other thoughts that you want to send out to the listeners?
Like I said, we have a couple shows coming up in the Tulsa area on September 7th. We're playing with the Kamals, who I mentioned earlier, at the Vanguard. And then we also have the 27th, we're going to be out of town. But if the listeners want to check our Facebook, we are always posting show updates there. And like I said, you can go check out our music. You can stream for free anytime at our Bandcamp, which you can find on our Facebook. So, yeah, just keep an eye out for us, I guess.
All right. Good deal. Well, Erin, thanks for stopping by with us tonight, and good luck with your shows. I would remind everybody to go out to YouTube and do a search for Them Hounds No Fix. Check out the new video. Go out to their Facebook page, which I believe is, I just can pull it up here in just a second here. It's facebook.com/Them Hounds. Check them out there and keep on top of what they are up to. But again, Erin, thanks for calling in, and maybe we can have you again with your colleagues sometime.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in. Have a great day.
Of course. Have a good one.
So that was Erin, singer from Them Hounds, the blues rock band here in Oklahoma City. I am going to be putting them up on the OKC Rock Battle Royale this week. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time or haven't tuned in a while, I've got this thing going on my blog that's I call the Oklahoma City Rock Battle Royale, and it's been going on for a couple of months now. I've got 2 local bands that I kind of put up against each other, and I put up a poll and let the people who come on the blog read about it. And so this next week I will be having Them Hounds on the poll. I'm not sure who I'm going to be having them up against. This past week we have had the band Spooky Fruit going up against Captain Eyeball. I'm thinking that's what. Yeah, Captain Eyeball versus Spooky Fruit. That poll will be done. I will be taking that down tomorrow morning and starting up a new one. if you do want to go and vote on this poll, just go to otterlimits.us. It's www.otter, like the animal, limits.us. Also, while I'm thinking about it, the other ways that you can view and look at what's going on with Otter Limits, the website, and Otter Limits, the radio show, besides the otterlimits.us website, we have the Facebook site, which is www.facebook.com/theotterlimits. And if you're one of those folks that likes to do the Twitter thing, it's twitter.com/otter272. So if you're interested in looking at any of that stuff, then that's where you can go. In a little bit here, we're going to have another special guest. This one's, as I mentioned earlier, he's going to be hopefully running for governor of Oklahoma against Mary Fallin. His name is R.J. Harris. We'll have him on a little bit later. One thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, I wrote an article for a website a while back. The name of the website's Freedom Bunker, so you can just go to freedombunker.com. The article was called 1913. It was essentially just an article about what the significance of the year 1913 in the United States was. And in my estimation, it's basically kind of what was the beginning of the end for our republic. Politically speaking, there were some pretty bad things that happened that year. Then now there was some good things that happened here. I mean, the Ford Motor Company introduced the moving assembly line. The Lincoln Highway was dedicated, and that was the first automobile road stretched across the United. Basically, it was the first freeway. So those were some decent things that happened. But there were some things that were just not really so great. The establishment of the Department of Labor and the Department of Commerce happened in 1913. So that kind of led to more bureaucracy in the federal government. But compared to, there were 4 specific events in 1913 that spelled kind of the beginning and the end. The first one was the passage of the 16th Amendment. The second one was the passage of the 17th Amendment. The third was the establishment of the Federal Reserve. And the fourth was the beginning of the presidential term of Woodrow Wilson. So prior to 1913, the federal government got its revenue from levies, tariffs. These sort of things are what funded our federal government without any individual income tax. In 1913, however, the 16th Amendment was passed, and it gave Congress the power to tax an individual's income. So, now when the founding fathers declared their independence from Great Britain and created this country, it was their intention to create a country where a person could prosper. A person could keep the fruits of their labors. One of the things they were rebelling against was so many taxes. So with the passage of the 16th Amendment and the institution of the income tax, this ability for people to prosper and keep the fruits of the labors diminished quite a bit. So this income tax led to the federal government having the ability to take money away from people to pay for programs they didn't agree with and to fight in wars they didn't agree with. Also, prior to 1913, U.S. senators were selected by state legislatures. This made them more accountable to their state, not necessarily to corporate lobbyists, special interest groups, and the like. 17th Amendment was passed, and it made senators elected by the people. So they were not accountable to their respective states. This amendment kind of began the decline of the influence of states in modern federal government. It led to the rise and influence of special interest groups and basically an overall decline in accountability for members of the Senate. So that's why I have a problem with the 17th Amendment. Also, prior to 1913, Congress had the sole authority to handle our monetary system. Constitution gave Congress the authority to handle money. But in 1913, this authority was kind of handed over to the Federal Reserve. So this is a non-federal agency that's operated by private individuals. To date, the Federal Reserve has never been audited, and is really responsible to nobody except its shareholders. This private organization, in my opinion, has entirely too much influence in the economy of the United States. And now, on a more fortunate note, the tide against the Federal Reserve is starting to turn, and so that's something that we have to look forward to. Maybe that tide will continue. Lastly, in the fourth one, the 1913 year brought about the beginning of the Woodrow Wilson administration. Now, I don't know what you guys think of him, but I think he was one of the worst presidents in our nation's history. In a book written by the former president, he wrote about his rejection of the principles of separation of powers and the idea of checks and balances in our system of government. He said in this book, quoting the book, "Government does now whatever experience permits or the times demand." He also wrote that the president is at liberty to be as big a man as he can be. His capacity will set the limit. To me, these things kind of sound like a man who thought the presidency was bigger than the foundation of government itself. This was a president that campaigned for peace. He campaigned saying he kept us out of war. However, as soon as he was reelected to another term, he forced the United States into a war that it really had no business fighting. His actions led to the collapse of a long history of non-intervention into foreign conflicts. This president really had a strong disdain for the free market system. Wilson once said that President Jefferson said that the best government is that which does as little governing as possible. But that time is past. This is what Wilson said. This time is past. America is not now and can never in the future be a place for unrestricted individual enterprise. Not a place. America, he's saying America is not a place for unrestricted individual enterprise. Now, remember, these words came from a president. So, just little things like that just irked me about President Wilson. So that was the gist of the article that I wrote. And you can read that again. You can read that at freedombunker.com. The title of that article is 1913. All right. Well, we are going to take another musical interlude break, whatever you want to call it. And when we get back, I think we're going to have our special guest on the air. Thanks, folks, for tuning back into the Outer Limits. I am your host, Steve Long. Earlier, we had Them Hounds on, talking about their music and what they are up to. In just a few minutes, we are going to have R.J. Harris on the line with us, giving him a few more minutes to come on in. Just kind of get everybody introduced to him. R.J. is a hopeful Democratic nominee for governor of Oklahoma. Before this, he ran against Tom Cole as a Republican for Oklahoma's 4th Congressional District. That was in 2010. He ran against Tom Cole again as an independent for Congress in 2012. And then he also at one time was seeking the presidential nomination for the Libertarian Party. So he is seeking the Democratic nomination for governor. And we'll have him on here in just a few minutes. Anyway, while we're waiting for him, I do want to let you know that we are going to open up the phone lines in here in just a little while. Number to call in to is 646-378-1886. Be sure you call in and voice your thoughts on anything that you want to talk about. So that'll be a little bit later. Probably have a few people call in. Hopefully, still waiting on RJ here. I think I may not have given him the right time to call in, but actually I do think that is him calling in now. RJ, is that you?
Steve?
Hey, how's it going?
This is RJ.
Hey RJ, thanks for calling in. Glad to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate you and your listeners.
Great. So, let's just jump right into things. How about you tell us why you decided to run for governor of Oklahoma?
Well, it's the same reason I decided to run for Congress, president, and that's to continue to fight for freedom and liberty and to keep that movement pressing on and, try to stand up for those principles for all Oklahomans. I mean, this is a statewide race, so my influence will be kind of zeroed in and focused here in the state of Oklahoma. But you and I both know that there are times when governors can kind of set the pace nationally, and hopefully if we can get a few governors that are willing to stand up and defend liberty in their own home states, then maybe we can start a trend.
It does seem like, to a certain extent, the tide, so to speak, of liberty seems to be turning in a more positive direction. Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't know if it's turning yet, but I know we're gaining ground. And, you're always gaining ground before you turn a tide. But, we've got a few liberty candidates elected to the Congress now, and we've got a few more running for different offices. Everybody talks about, people talk about Rand Paul for running for president in 2016 as if it's a foregone conclusion. And, libertarian is no longer a bad word. The press the press used to refer to Ron Paul as a libertarian Republican as a pejorative. And now they refer to that as Rand Paul, and he doesn't hide from it, and nobody else. I mean, you see, you hear the Washington, I think it was Times or Post come out talking about, libertarian Democrats, a movement in search of a leader. I mean, so that used to be a bad word people used to try to label us with, and I just don't think it is anymore. Ron Paul has explained to the nation what it means to be a libertarian, that it simply means to believe in the Constitution and to want to stand up for liberty. And I don't think it's the bad word it used to be, or at least perceived that way. So, and now more and more of our candidates are stepping out. We've got business leaders that are being recognized for their political leanings towards libertarianism. So we'll see where it goes. And my goal is to at least to continue that trend and help us turn that corner. Because I think if we can get one, and it doesn't matter what party, but if we can get one freedom fighter, one libertarian governor elected in the nation, then we can get a little closer to that.
It gives hope to libertarians. They see one major libertarian elected official, and it gives them hope to, maybe we can get a libertarian elected in our state.
Well, and it's more than just, it's more than just hope too, because it gives us an opportunity to put the principles of freedom in practice in government, in the daily operation of the state. And, here in Oklahoma, there's of course, as a constitutional libertarian, first and foremost, I keep all political philosophy, including my own, within the scope of the consent to be governed, which at the federal level is represented by the U.S. Constitution. Here in Oklahoma, it's represented by the Oklahoma Constitution. So if we can put those principles into practice, even when we're administrating the daily operation of the state, and see Oklahoma, really, bump up its economic prosperity, and really improve upon its liberty quotient and so forth, well, then we will have a resume to build on as a message.
Good. So let me ask you, if you were elected as governor, what would be, say, your number one priority, and how would you address it?
Well, my number one priority is going to be to eliminate as much liberty-infringing legislation as possible. Now, I know I'm not the legislature, but I can work with the legislature to attempt to repeal as much liberty-infringing legislation as possible. I saw a news article about a city in Colorado that's doing that, where they're trying to repeal one oppressive city ordinance every month that they feel is a counter to liberty. And I'm probably going to be a little bit more aggressive than that. I want to try to repeal and get rid of as much liberty-infringing legislation as on the books, and to block as much would be coming down the pike, after the fact. And then, of course, right behind that, for me, one of the ways to provide as much immediate respite from government tyranny as possible is to end the drug war. And as governor of Oklahoma, the drug war will stop at our border, and I will get as many nonviolent offenders for possession and use of controlled substance out of the prison system as possible, and that's directly granting people back their liberty. You see, they're locked up, they're oppressed, they're tyrannized. In some cases, we have some perfect example of here in Oklahoma, as a matter of fact, we had the case of a single mother who's locked up for 10 years for having a few joints. Ridiculous. Okay,
yeah.
So we're going to not just talk the talk. We're going to walk the walk. We're going to put people out of bondage right back, give them their freedom back, and stop that drug war at the border. And those are two big things for me, is to restore people's freedom and liberty in the most. And of course, it's not all going to be done through, the governor's pardon. The last election, there were some adjustments to the governor's pardon capability here in Oklahoma. So I may have to have a talk with my legal advisors and find out exactly how much power we have there. But the governor has that pulpit, that ability to reach out to the public and really wrap their arms around big topics like jury nullification. And so if I don't have the full power of pardon like I'm thinking that I do to handle some of these issues with the drug war, another way to deal with it is to make sure that we get state approved and funded literature into the courthouses that says to the jurors, and no longer in fear of the judge hammering down on them or trying to take it away or trying to, no, this is the state of Oklahoma saying that every juror that sits in a court in Oklahoma is going to know when they sit in there that they can nullify. And I will make sure that happens. I mean, regardless of what happens with the fallout on how much wiggle room I'll have on pardons, regardless of that being good or bad, one of the top things I'm going to make sure that I do is make sure that every juror that sits in the Oklahoma court knows before they sit in there and before they get sworn into the jury that they have the power to nullify that law.
Okay. So another
you can see that would have bigger ramifications than even just the drug war. I mean, that would get into to dealing with bad gun laws. That would get into dealing with other liberty infringing laws that someone's being brought up on charges for, and all of a sudden here comes the jury doing exactly what Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, James Madison, and John Jay argued for, which is to judge the law itself. Right, so whenever a case comes up and a person's standing trial, it's not just that person on trial, it's the law as well. Right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you can see that would have far-reaching implications well beyond just the drug war, but that would probably be the biggest immediate impact.
Good. Another concern on people's minds, and I'm sure yours too. If you were elected as governor, what would your thoughts be on fixing, that's the best word I can come up with, fixing the education system in Oklahoma?
Well, the education system, from my perspective, the education system does need a lot of help, and the help that it needs is streamlining itself between the bureaucracy between the principal and the state superintendent. We have got way too much bureaucracy in between the principals of the schools and the state superintendent. And I think that's gobbling up a huge portion of the money that's intended by the legislature to go into the classrooms. Now, a lot of folks that listen to this may or may not be aware of the Oklahoma Constitution, but I've been through it several times. And whether or not you are a proponent of public education, the fact of the matter is here in Oklahoma, public education is part of our Constitution. And as the governor, I'm going to have to swear to uphold and defend that Constitution and execute it, faithfully execute as best I can. So regardless of what any of the listeners' opinion of public education may be, I'm going to have that duty to make sure that our public education here in Oklahoma is delivered in accordance with the Constitution. But I'm saying right now that I'm going to do so in the most efficient manner possible, and to ensure that as much of the resources as being allocated by the legislature in accordance with the Constitution that's going to education is going into the classroom. We're going to start tracking more closely how much of that funding on the dollar is actually making it to the student, and we're going to gauge our success every year by we seeing that number go up. Whatever that number is now. And I'll go ahead and, say now that I don't have that figure at the top of my head, but whatever that number is now, we're going to attempt to increase it as much as we can over the 4 to 8 years that I will be in office, and to where, most of that funding is going to the students and directly to the classroom and the teachers. One thing also that I had in mind was we're talking about improving the efficiency of the system and weeding out as much of the superfluous bureaucracy there above the principal level. But one thing that we can also do in the education delivery itself is modernize it as well. And I will be looking at initiatives for tablets to be into the classroom for the teachers, for the students. That will be a way for us to help reduce the cost over time of paper book purchases, of the transport of those books, the storage of those books, the maintenance of those books. It would be a reduction in paper resources that we have to use, for the children to have their textbooks. Instead, they would be on their tablets. So we're looking, sometimes there may be something that out there that some people say, okay, well, this particular government program may be counter to a libertarian concept, but the fact of the matter is it's in our Constitution, our Oklahoma Constitution. So as governor, what I'm going to have to do is find the most efficient way to deliver it as possible, and that's what you see me talking about here.
Right. I mean, I totally agree with you that I think there's too much bureaucracy in education and less, the control of education should be, in my opinion, at the lowest local level possible.
And I agree with that. But I also agree. I totally agree with that. But I also agree that since the Oklahoma taxpayer is putting the bill, that we do have an obligation to be reporting back to them how our students are doing. And over the years, there's been a lot of back and forth about standardized testing and how much of the time that takes and whether or not the students are being taught the test and so on and so forth. Well, that's another reason why I've been looking at the digital classroom, tablet-based curriculums, and so forth, because what will allow us to do there is we can streamline the delivery process, of those curriculums. We can see, we can build data and flow charts to see, how the students are doing from all the way from the lecture all the way to the exam. See, because all of that stuff, when you're taking exams and doing things like this through your tablet, that data is all being recorded, and then we can see, without the need of a standardized test, we can see how the students are doing in real time. You see what I'm saying? So hopefully what we can wind up doing is eliminating some of the superfluous activity. Once again, more expenses on these standardized tests, right? And actually get a better picture of where our students are in real time, as opposed to at the end of the year, once and any of those folks out there talking about, we're worried about the teachers are just teaching the students to the test, or test the students or whatever. That kind of goes away when you're actually seeing the results from the classroom day to day, week to week. You're able to watch the chart and the course line and see where the students really are.
Well, right. And effectively what you're doing is you are, rather than throwing more money at the problem, you are using the resources that we already have more efficiently.
That's correct. That's what I'm trying to get at, right there.
Yeah. So, because there's a lot of people out there just say, we need more, we need more money for education. And the reality is we don't need more money. Throwing money at the problem isn't going to fix the problem. I mean, the federal government has shown that time and time again. They've failed at every turn. So we need to use the money that we have and use it more efficiently. So, yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Now, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I want to hear it anyway. What are your thoughts on Oklahoma's ballot access laws?
Well, as you know, I think they're absolutely archaic and ridiculous and tyrannical. I mean, to artificially be keeping candidates and parties off of the Oklahoma ballot it strikes at the very heart of the legitimacy of our electoral process. Because when the people don't really have a choice of the candidates that represent them, then you can't say that there is a representative government, because they've been forced into an artificial selection process that didn't even include from the very beginning all the way to the end any candidates whatsoever that may have represented their viewpoints. And it's not like that, the viewpoints are way outside the mainstream. I mean, as we talked about at the start of the segment here, libertarianism is growing rapidly across the country, coming back into the public eye. Of course, we all know that libertarianism was the driving political philosophy for, more than 100 years after the founding of the republic. So now here we see it coming, kind of getting its own, getting a second wind, coming back into the public view. And, we've got a very prominent libertarian Republican being talked about running for president. Behind his father who's done the same thing. So it's not like this is, some, fringe shoestring element out there. I mean, you have very, very salient political philosophy out there being kept from the voters here in states like Oklahoma. I know there's some others out there with some pretty bad ballot access laws, but we're just talking about Oklahoma right now. And, it's so bad, in fact, that to try to get a candidate on the ballot for governor in 2014 was absolutely impossible for them. I mean, it was bad enough trying to get a presidential candidate on when the number of signatures needed was based on the previous gubernatorial election from 2 years ago, and now if you're going to base it on the presidential numbers to get a governor, it's not even possible. I mean, it is, but it would take so much money, it's beyond the reach. And, of course, the spirit of the ballot access laws has to simply be, to prevent frivolous candidates from getting on the ballot. Well, come on. You don't need to make a party spend, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to prove they're not frivolous. Okay, that is way over the top. That is not narrowly tailored to achieve the important governmental job that it's trying to get done with the ballot access law. So you can bet, as governor, one of the things I'm going to tackle is getting that 1970s law repealed that had all those, and of course was increased there a few decades later. We're going to get that repealed and get that reduced down to a level to where any party that's represented nationally will be able to get out there, get their couple thousand signatures, whatever it may be, and get their candidates on the ballot. This is ridiculous, and I'm going to fight to get it lowered to the lowest I can. As a matter of fact, if I had my way, it wouldn't be that at all. It would not be thousands of signatures at all. But I'm going to have to see what I can get out the legislature. I'm going to fight to get it down to the lowest possible level, so that way any of our other national parties out there who have been artificially kept off the Oklahoma ballot for the last 20 years will no longer be done that way.
Great. Sounds like you got some good ideas. Do you have other thoughts you want to leave with us?
What's that?
Do you have any other thoughts that you want to leave with us? Anything else you'd like the listeners to know?
Well, I'd like to let them know that this is a very real possibility. This is something that we can actually win this race. I've been looking at the numbers before we even got involved, and there's straight down the board in 2012 there was 30%. It was 70-30 Republican to Democrat, and so a lot of people have said, "RJ, this is crazy. You ought to just stay in the Republican Party, and that way you can actually win a race, or just win. If you win a primary, you could just win the race." And so forth, register state and union, and all this other stuff, right? Well, right. I don't agree. I don't agree because the Oklahoma Republican Party has gotten so out of hand that even when all the Ron Paul people all won all the delegate seats for Florida, and the Republican Party is so corrupt here that they overturned that election and then sent their own delegates to Florida anyway. So I mean, what's the point of even staying there? I mean, even when you win the votes, you don't win. It's over at that point. It's not even an option for us over there now because of that. So when you look at, is this state really as red as the election results show? I don't think it is, because our voter registration numbers are still at parity. They're still right at 50%. So why are the Republicans winning 70-30? It's because the Democrats are not seeing any good, solid, either libertarian Democrat or conservative Democrat candidates come up there, so they're losing 20% of their vote over to the Republican. So, I shared this with the chairman. I said, "Sir, if we can get a libertarian Democrat out here on the ticket, then we might be able to. We would hold on to our 30% base that's voting Democrat every election. We could win back our 20% that's been voting for Republicans because they don't really care for a socialist candidate. They want a conservative Democrat. We can win those 20% back." And then we all know here in Oklahoma just how big a rift there is between the Ron Paul supporters and Mary Fallin. That number is 11%. Folks, that comes up to 61%. This race is easily winnable by a libertarian Democrat who has the Ron Paul people at its back. Okay? So we could win this race. We could win the state of Oklahoma for freedom and liberty. This is not just an educational campaign to get people's attention or to be talking about liberty issues. This is a race that we can win, and I'm hoping that people that hear this, all over the country, will go to my website, go to my Facebook page there, make a donation in this fight for liberty. And let me add this real quick. I've already run into some folks in the Democrat side that say, "Oh well, he ran as a Republican back in 2010. He's been an independent. Is he really a Democrat or whatnot?" And the thing I'd like to say to my new constituents in the Democrat Party is this. If I was really about all that, I would just stay in the Republican Party. Okay? Their star is on the ascendancy in Oklahoma. They're the ones winning all the races at 70%. And all the conventional wisdom, even advice I've received from lifetime Democrats that I know that teach up at the law school have said, "RJ, you probably ought to just stay in the Republican Party if you want to get elected." All right? So the Democrat Party is down. It's flat on its back right now. It doesn't have any congressional seats, Senate seats. It doesn't have governor, lieutenant governor. If I was really just an opportunist, I would just stay in the Republican Party and try to go that vector, right?
Yeah,
but that's
definitely.
So you see what I'm saying? Like, so why am I going to swim upstream here? Why am I going to go ahead and switch over to the Democrat Party when, you know, conventional wisdom would say, okay, you need to stay Republican side. They're the ones winning 70% in your state right now. Well, because in 2010 and again in 2012, I can tell you, the open and on its face religious bigotry, racism, you name it, is so ingrained in the Republican Party that I just cannot stomach it. I cannot do it. I had no idea how bad it was going to be until I actually got out on the campaign trail in 2010 and saw some of the things that I saw from both party activist leaders, elected leaders, as well as the constituencies, some of the constituents out there in the base. And as I was making my decision over the last year about which way to move forward and studying the parties very closely and having, you know, discussions with folks on both sides, I really just had to make the decision that I cannot be aligned with that party that is that openly religiously bigoted and racist, and you know, I just can't. I can't do it. I can't represent their viewpoints anymore. And you know, in Oklahoma, it's blue or red, it's Democrat or Republican, and so I look over at the Democrat Party and I say, well, at least I've got some folks over here that will listen to reason and are folks that are not being religiously biased and bigoted. They're not being racist. I can at least make a cogent argument for the issues and the causes of liberty, and they'll listen and not be swayed by that religious intolerance or that racial bias.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this race turns out, and looking forward to the race itself and you know, the journey ahead that you have. Really looking forward to seeing how that journey turns out. And we'd really like to have you on the show again later on in the campaign season, if you don't mind coming back.
Certainly. You know how to get a hold of me. You got my number and you got my Facebook email, so anytime you want me to come on the show, I'm happy to do it.
All right. And real quick, can you tell my listeners what your website is?
That's kind of funny, actually. Right now, my website URL is still rjharris2012.com. I know that's kind of silly because it's 2013 and we're running a race for 2014. But, you know, the search engine optimization is so good for that old website that when we made the conversion, you know, we still kept the rjharris2012.com, but it is being updated. Like, we're taking it at steps. I got my web developer who worked on my congressional campaign in 2010 is busy getting the website rebuilt yet. So it's going to be one of two things. We're in a flux right now. It's rjharris2012.com right now, but it's going to be switching to voteharris.org. Either one of them should work, either now or in the future. Those two things, rjharris2012.com or voteharris.org. No, we're getting rid of the dates, getting the dates out of my URLs because those things are so difficult to deal with. And then, of course, you can always find me at facebook.com/RJ Harris Official. That's facebook.com/RJ Harris Official. Any of those venues will get you to our websites.
Great. And if you folks out there listening didn't get a chance to write that down, I'm going to put a link on it, or link to it from my website. So just go to my website, autolimits.us, and you can find the link there as well. But RJ, it was good having you on the show. I enjoyed having you on. And anyway, so we just got through talking to RJ Harris. He is running for governor of Oklahoma. We are definitely looking forward to seeing how things work out with him. But for now, we're going to go ahead and open up the old phone lines. So if you want to call in, number to call in is 646-378-1886. And I'll be right here waiting for you. to call in, you can talk about anything you want. You want to talk about politics, you can do that. Talk about music, talk about comic books, movies, whatever it is that you want to talk about. One thing I was reading about earlier is, this whole thing going on in Egypt that I don't really spend much time reading about, although we do need to stay out of their business. But I was reading that Saudi Arabia's king is supporting the Egyptian military. At least that's what I was reading on the Drudge Report earlier. But to tell you the truth, I really don't care what's going on in Egypt. Sorry. Trying to see if there's anything else out there going on that might be of interest. While I'm waiting for somebody to call in, I just want to kind of bring up some points about some of the points that RJ made. This idea that libertarianism is no longer a bad word. I think he's right. I think a lot of people are getting to a point where they see that it's no longer a joke. There's a lot of people out there who just thought the Libertarian Party was a big joke, never really had any chance. Now, not saying that the Libertarian Party itself is making tremendous strides, but the fact that libertarian people, people that are libertarian in principle, are making better strides in politics is very well. It gives somebody like me hope that people are finally starting to pay attention, and mainstream people like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, the idea that people like these are presidential hopefuls, that gives people hope. People that are active in this liberty movement. Now, the one thing that I wouldn't say we necessarily disagree about it, but the deal he was talking about education. We do have a state constitution, and he is required by his oath, should he be elected, to uphold the Constitution. I don't necessarily think that that means that he should give up trying to make any changes, in respect to that sort of thing. Anyway, again, you want to call in, the number 646-378-1886. I'm going to go off the track a little bit and talk a bit about just random subject here. Talk about comic books. Had my friend Dave sent me a message asking me what I've been reading lately. The comics that I'm reading right now are two. I'm reading the storyline in DC called I feel like an idiot. I think it's called Trinity War. It's either just Trinity or Trinity War. Give me just a second. It's sitting here right by my desk here. Trinity War. It's a kind of a crossover event in DC Pretty big thing going on there, and basically they are all trying to chase down this girl named, well, I assume it's a girl, named Pandora, who has effectively opened Pandora's box, hence the name, and it's spawning all of the, well, it's not a DC wide crossover event. It is a Justice League crossover event. Right now, DC has 3 different Justice League titles. It's got the flagship Justice League. It's got the Justice League America title, and then there's also the Justice League Dark. So essentially, this Trinity War is a crossover for all 3 of those, and they are about 3/4 of the way done with it. Right now, I finished reading part 4 of 6, so it's going to be pretty interesting how things. I don't think anything really mind blowing is going to happen with the event as far as anything universe changing, like, nothing like the New 52, or even anything like Crisis on Infinite Earths, if any of you know anything about that. I don't think it's going to be any universe-wide disrupting thing, but I think it's going to be pretty interesting for those particular titles. No, actually, I don't think that it is part of Justice League International, although I could be completely wrong. Let me just check here, because I don't remember reading anything about it being in Justice League International. Although if it is, then I'm feeling pretty dumb. No, the event is in Justice League of America, Justice League Dark is the only titles that it is appearing in. There's gonna be some tie-ins, but the only tie-in to a comic book that already exists that I can see is Constantine, and I actually didn't even realize he had his own comic book title again. That's news to me. Now, just mentioning Justice League International in general, that title was actually canceled earlier last year. That only had there was only 12 issues published of Justice League International, which would make sense as to why Trinity War is not in it. Now I just got another question asked to me as to whether or not Pandora and Zealot are the same character. I will have to say I have absolutely no idea, as I didn't even know anything about Pandora until the New 52 started. I'll have to look into that in more depth. And just in case you're wondering, I'm having an instant message conversation with a friend of mine who listens into the show and makes comments every once in a while, kind of like I do with this show. Anyway, nobody is calling in, so I'm going to make one last attempt here. The number again is 646-378-1886. All you bashful people need to hurry up and call in. Anyway, he asked another question, which is off of the comic book subject and back onto politics. He was asking, do I think the libertarian movement can work within the Democratic Party? And I would have to say yes. Just as much as it could work within the Republican Party. the Republicans claim to be fiscal conservatives, and they claim to be advocates of limited government, although I don't really see it so much from my angle in that respect. So in that respect, that's how libertarianism works within the Republican Party. And then as far as working within the Democratic Party, they are more the socially liberal wing of politics. So I definitely can see libertarians working in that respect with the Democratic Party. The only thing I can really see the Democratic Party and a bunch of libertarians butting heads on would be the ideas of social welfare. In general, the Democratic Party is very proud and very, very parental, for lack of a better term, about their social welfare programs. I mean, you gotta remember that it's their standard bearers like FDR and Harry Truman who basically put those programs in place. So they're very proud of those programs. But yes, they are definitely a party that libertarians can work on in regards to social issues. It's just the most Democrats they would disagree with on economic issues. They would probably be, for lack of a better way to put it, maybe not as strong as how I'm going to put it, but very let's figure out another way to say this. They would probably be somewhere close to being on the same page with the Democrats in regards to some foreign policy in regards to and that's actually more in theory, because a lot of the Democrats are okay with what's going on over, sending our troops over and whatnot. But in theory, the Democrats seem to be more against war than, say, the war hawk Republicans. So that's where I could see, theoretically speaking, that the Libertarians could get along with Democrats. I really think it's going to be the social welfare issues and the economic issues that they will butt heads on. So the Libertarians can pretty much, in one way or another, work with either party if they chose to. But there are definitely a lot of Libertarians out there who are, like RJ said, just kind of really sick of the Republican Party because of because of the predominance of social conservatives within the party. That's pretty much all I have to say on that. And still no callers, so there's a chance I may be closing up shop here early. I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes. If folks want to call in, again, the number is 646-378-1886. So give us a call and we'll talk. Anyway, so we've got some. I'm affiliated with a network called Common Ground Media. They've got some other shows that they play. I was on their URL, but I kind of spun off and decided to do this myself. But I did want to let you know what other shows are going to be going on. You would have to go to the URL blogtalk.com/Common Ground Political Radio. And then the various shows, there's the one on Monday, The Family Factor with Denny C. And on Tuesdays and Fridays is the flagship show, Common Ground Radio. And that is with Robert, otherwise known as Double R, and Dave, a.k.a. Lefty, a.k.a. Oklahoma Lefty. They get on there and talk politics and a lot of other stuff. And it's a pretty fun show to watch. Check that out. My show used to be on Wednesdays, but I've been doing Sundays for the last few weeks. It turns out that it's working out a little bit better. Thursdays is, and I also believe Thursdays and Sundays now, Dave is doing a show called On the Fringes, and that is a purely music show. Really good show. You should check that out. This past Thursday, he did an all cover show that was just amazing, so you should definitely check that one out. And then Saturday is one of those days where it might be one show or the other. There's a Wake Up America that's got Double R and Denny and another guy. And on the other weeks, it's Robert doing a solo show called Off the Rails. So definitely check those out. You can find them. Just go on to Facebook and search for Common Ground Media. You should be able to find it. Or if you want to shoot me an email, my email is otter272@gmail.com. Check it out and shoot me an email. I'll let you know when and where these shows are going to be taking place. I have gotten an internet or an instant message request to discuss one of my top 13 lists. If anybody pays attention to the blog, all year I've been doing these top 13 type lists, just like listing my top 13 favorites of certain things. So the last one that I did was a top 13 folky albums, and this is a list of albums from bands that would fall under the various folk music type genres like folk punk or alt country or folk rock or anything in that respect. So I did that list. I did that back on the 8th of August. So here is that list, and these are listed by year of release. Violent Femmes self-titled album from 1983 was the first one. Number 2 is Trace by Sunvolt. That was released in 1995. 3 was Ravenna Junction by Tim Berry, released in 2006. Number 4 is Endless Oklahoma Sky by John Mortland, released in 2008. You should definitely check him out. Number 5, Gold Country by Chuck Reagan, released in 2009. Number 6, another John Morland album, Earthbound Blues, released in 2011. Number 7 was Resolutions by Dave House, released in 2011. Number 8, England Keep My Bones by Frank Turner, also in 2011. And another one in 2011, number 9, another John Morland. Everything the Hard Way, also, as I said, released in 2011. Number 10, another Dave House, Time Will Tell, released in 2012. Number 11, 40 Miller by Tim Berry, released in 2012. And the last 2 are both released in 2013. Number 12, another John Morland, In the Throes. And number 13, another Frank Turner, Tape Deck Heart. So, if you like lists, I know a lot of folks out there are into lists. No, not lisps. Lists. L-I-S-T-S. Check out the blog because I do them fairly often. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Erin from Them Hounds for coming on earlier in the show. definitely want to thank R.J. Harris for coming on and letting us know about his candidacy for governor. Hope to have him back on later. And again, want to thank everybody for tuning in, especially anybody who tuned in for the first time tonight. Come on back next Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Otter Limits Radio, and you can find me pretty easy just by going to www.otterlimitsradio.com. All right, we will see you next week. Goodbye.